Service Pension Fund will post a large surplus. Do you plan on or have you booked any of this reported surplus against the deficit?
No.
Thank you. Are you expecting a credit downgrade will result from the updated deficit numbers?
Let me be very clear that I am not confirming the implication in your question, but when it comes to Canada's credit rating, it is based on the fact that our public finances are sustainable, that we have the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7 and one that is declining, that we have had the fastest rate of fiscal consolidation. Hang on, I do want to answer the question. That we have had the fastest rate of fiscal consolidation in the G7 and that we have the lowest deficit in the G7. I am confident that our public finances continue to merit our AAA rating.
Thank you. In your opening remarks, you said you would be prepared to take additional measures to ensure that payment processors like Stripe pass savings along to eligible small business. Does that include formal regulations with penalties to ensure compliance?
That's a really good question. I'm glad to have a question actually about this subject that we were brought here to discuss. Let me be very clear. It is very committed to bringing down fees for small businesses. We are very committed to transparency. We have a lot, and we are committed to doing more. And you know, every tool is in the toolbox, and we're prepared to use all of them.
Time you talk to what I talk, so I'll take that as a no for now. How are you monitoring to what extent payment processors are passing along fee savings from Visa and MasterCard to small businesses, or are you doing that at all?
Let me just say, your conclusion about what I said is not accurate. I said that we are prepared to act further, and that is absolutely the case. This is something we are very, very committed to. We are working very closely with the Consumer Protection Bureau. We are working very closely with the CFIB. We are working very closely with small businesses. We are committed that these savings should be transferred to small businesses, and they will be.
Thank you. Thank you. You also said that we're operating in an environment of more mercantilism. Do you have plans to permanently reduce tax burdens on businesses to make them more competitive vis-a-vis the U.S. mercantilist environment, such as eliminating the carbon tax?
I do think the marginal effective tax rate is something that it is very important to look at. Our government monitors that very closely. We will continue to do so. And I do believe we have to be very careful and thoughtful about fighting for capital for Canada and Canadians.
So you will eliminate the carbon tax?
Canada's meter continues to be better than the meter in the United States. That is something we need to watch, and we need to maintain that competitive advantage.
Would you suggest that the carbon tax helps attract investment to Canada vis-a-vis the American market, since it doesn't have a carbon tax?
I would suggest two things. First of all, the small business carbon rebate is delivering $2.5 billion to small businesses even as we speak. That is a significant boost coming at the right time. Second of all, as Francois Philippe discussed, there are many businesses investing in Canada based on our price to pollution. The EV industry is one example. Down north of where you are right now in Calgary is another example.
The deficit is going to be over $40 billion. Is the deficit going to be over $40 billion?
I am glad, notwithstanding the Conservative filibuster, that I will have an opportunity to present the fall economic statement on Monday, and we will be presenting full transparency on the public finances.
Has the Prime Minister indicated to you that you'll be shuffled out of your role if the deficit is over $40 billion?
I think that's a question for the Prime Minister.
Is that a yes?
I was very clear.
All right, thank you, MP Rempel-Garner.
really,
On that note, I'll turn it over to MP Van Bynen for.
Minister Champagne, to follow up on your last statement, since we are dealing with supplementary estimates here, in other words, additional spending for your department, can you tell me how much is in these supplementary estimates for toner cartridge that was used to blank out 30,000 pages on the Green Slush Fund?
Mr. Perkins, I'm always happy to come at the committee when you're there. I must say this is the best gift I have before Christmas. You know, I know you're a man of good heart. You know that what we did was to comply with the requests of this committee to produce 29,000 pages. I know it's a lot of reading for Christmas, but I don't expect a Christmas card from you this year on this one.
It's all blanked out. You're, of course, getting a Christmas card from me, but it was all blanked out. Minister Freeland, I would like to ask you, you know, I have some sympathy for you because every budget that you've presented, you've said this is the guardrail, this is the deficit, we're not going beyond it, and in every one you've missed it. So can you tell me who is telling you that you have to go through in the year after your deficit? Is it Mr. Carney or is it the Prime Minister?
I share my colleague, the industry minister's view that you have a good heart, Mr. Perkins. Unfortunately, I have to correct and strongly disagree with your core assertion. The fact is, notwithstanding Conservative repeated attempts to muddy the waters, Canada has had the fastest fiscal consolidation in the G7 since the COVID recession. We have the lowest debt to GDP ratio. We have the lowest deficit. Markets are rewarding us for that with cheaper debt than the UK and the US. This is what a fiscally responsible plan is. And I would like to point out that we are on track to achieve a soft landing from the COVID recession more successfully than experts predicted at the peak of that recession, which is deeper than the Great Depression, and a much quicker recovery than Stephen Harper was able to deliver.
Because you never meet it. So if I could go on to my next question. On the oil and gas cap, did Finance do an economic analysis, your department, on what the impact of that cap would be on reducing the production?
Very glad to have a question about the oil and gas industry, because one of the important infrastructure investments by our government is to complete the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which is in service today, and that is estimated to be adding by the Bank of Canada 0.25% to Canada's GDP. That was the result of an activist government that stepped in when the private sector could not get the job done,
fair enough, Minister,
and is adding to Canada's economy.
Didn't answer the question of whether or not the department, yes or no, did an economic analysis to impact that cap. If you could quickly, because I have another question I need to ask you.
No, let me be very clear. If the Conservatives are sincere in believing that the oil and gas industry contributes to the Canadian economy and to our national security, as do I would like to hear the Conservatives talking about the value that the Trans Mountain Pipeline brings to our economy. And I have not heard that a single time.
I take it that's
and
a
that
no
shows,
since you're refusing
that shows
to answer
extreme
the question.
hypocrisy.
So former Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Poles says we're in a recession. You say we're in a vibe session. Can you tell me what people are experiencing in a vibe session that's different than a recession?
What I can say, Mr. Perkins, is that after a very challenging time with high inflation and high interest rates, Canada now has had inflation within the Bank of Canada's target range for 10 months, and I am glad to be able to quote the Governor of the Bank of Canada, who said, speaking to the Senate Banking Committee, we are no longer trying to get inflation down. Government spending is not pushing against us getting inflation down. We have brought it down. Again, that is not a Liberal or a Conservative. That is the independent governor of our central bank, and that is something we should all celebrate.
Are the 2 million people experiencing food banks, a record number under your government, are they experiencing the recession versus the vibe session differently, Or are they in a recession when they cannot pay or get food?
It is the height of hypocrisy for Conservatives to claim to care about the most vulnerable. Conservatives are the party that voted against a national school food program. Conservatives are the party that is voting against dental care. Conservatives will have a chance tomorrow to vote on whether seniors should be able to get dental care.
That's enough. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's enough. MP Badaway, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.